Welcome to the Illuminati broadcast. My name is David Moore and I am your host. Hello. Alright, so today is Saturday. I went to Venice Beach. I was gonna go sell my art and I laid out a towel. I put my art out. I started painting. I didn't make any sales, but it's okay. It was a good first time experience. I had to come back early because my friend had something else that she needed to do, so we came home. But it was really nice to be able to just go and check it out and see what it's like. And I want to do that again tomorrow and see what happens and hopefully sell some art. Yeah, today's Saturday, so maybe we can go over the Ars Goetia for Saturday. It's represented by the spirit Forecast or Forcus. He's number 50. He's a knight. He's Saturn. His metal's lead. His color is dark, like black or dark grays. In Pokemon, he would be coughing and wheezing. Let's look up his definition and let's go over that real quick. Forcus. The 50th spirit is Forcus. He is a knight and appeareth in the form of a cruel old man with a long beard and a hoary head, riding upon a pale-colored horse with a sharp weapon in his hand. His office is to teach the arts of philosophy, astrology, rhetoric, logic, chiromancy, and pyromancy in all their parts and perfectly. He hath under his power 20 legions of spirits. This is what his seal looks like. Forcus. If you notice, this can kind of represent like the phases of the sun. So like it rises in the east, starts going through the south, kind of goes down. Maybe we should talk about that. So with a lot of the sigils and the seals that they have, they're compasses of like the sun's like pattern through the sky. And Forcus would be like around evening time, so it would be like maybe like right now because it's 4:38, so maybe somewhere around there. Well, let's check in the other diagram that I have, so we can get a better accurate image of what time it would be. Yeah, so actually that would be like maybe before the sun starts going down, so maybe around 6 or 7. That would be his time. If you look here, you can kind of see this is his number right here, 50. So this is like what, 30. This goes up to 40, and then this would be the 50 mark. You could also see Capricorn, so it's gonna be like in Jupiter and Pisces. So that's when the sun starts setting. And right here, the zodiac sign is for Capricorn and Saturn, so that can give you a bit of a better idea where like Capricorn gets its energy from, because it's half fish, half earth, so you can kind of see that the water is going into this earth element. And Forcus is supposed to be a knight, and he's the only knight in the Ars Goetia. That's kind of important. When you look at the key, you can see that Saturn is at the center. And there's these two little balances that he kind of controls. So this is like kind of when the sun is going into the fire element. So this would be like around 9 o'clock. And then this is like when the sun starts setting. So like 7 or 8. That would be kind of like that Saturn energy. Even in Pisces, like in astrology, you could see right here that he's ruled by Saturn. You could say Neptune, but we're going to go like really basic. So when you're using the key of Solomon, you're not using Neptune, you're not using Uranus, you're not using Pluto. You just stick with the main planets that they have, which will be Venus, the Sun, Mars, the Moon, Jupiter, and Mercury. And you don't have to think of them as planets that are far away. You can think of them as times of the day. So Saturn kind of has this duality almost, but it's always like something that's kind of like a finishing. Yeah, so if it would be like Jupiter and Saturn. I don't know. That's where you kind of get the mythology from, like Zeus and Saturn fighting and Cronus or whatever, and then Zeus taking over. Let me see. So if he's in the center, so that's kind of where the idea of like Saturn's rings come from. So the thing with the Key of Solomon, you're not gonna literally take it to like how scientists say this is how the planets work, this is what they are. So you can kind of think of Saturn as like the face of the clock, and it like kind of ticks like towards them. So when you're using the spirits of Saturn like a knight, um, he's only one knight. There's not multiple knights. There's just one knight, and maybe you can think of your legions as knights, but Furcus has the ability to go through all of the planets and like reach out to them. So we can kind of see that in this. So it's kind of like Hermes, but instead of Hermes being just the night time, Saturn is kind of representative of everything. Nights may from dawning of day till sunrise, or from 4 o'clock till sunset. That's when you combine them. So you can bind the night around those times. So basically, when you're binding a spirit, you're not like stopping it from doing something. You're probably like capturing it and pulling it and telling it what to do. So you could do that from dawning of day. So that kind of makes sense. Like Saturn is like, all right. So this would be the dawning of day, Venus. And you can kind of see Saturn right here just pulling in this energy. And he can go all the way, I think, until sunrise from dawning of day. Maybe bound, okay. Nights may from dawning of day till sunrise. So I guess that would be the full circle. And then, or from 4 o'clock till sunset. So you can also summon him here and then until the sun rises. There's kind of like a context that you have to kind of understand. In one of the stories that King Solomon goes through and he's building the temple, he meets a demon that it doesn't have a head. It has like fire for a head. So like a headless horseman. It's a knight in armor and he has like this fiery head and it changes faces. And it's always cutting off other people's heads and putting it on its own. So you can kind of see that as like the day changing. So there's always like a different time of the day. Like in the morning you get like a fresh sun. It's not super hot, but it's like really warm, but it's also nice. It's tolerable. And then the evening he starts getting hotter and it's like a more blistering sunlight. And then towards the end of the day he starts cooling down, and then at nighttime you don't really see his head. You don't see the sun anymore. So yeah, that's kind of what it represents. Also maybe like in the story with Jesus, he's like, he meets this wild man in the mountains, like in chains, shackled up. And like he breaks free of the chains and he's like super strong. He's like possessed by demons. And that's kind of what Saturn is. It's like this vessel that you can use to contact any of the spirits that you want to. But then you take that and you bring it down to yourself. So you would be Saturn because you're one form. But you can take so many different faces, different heads, different times. So it would be good, like, let's just think outside the box. So if you're the knight and you want to work with the powers of Jupiter, maybe let's work with, what's today, Saturday, and we're in the month of Virgo. Maybe you want to try to get working with Mercury a little bit better. Mercury already has that ability to run through all the other planets and send messages, but maybe you could work with him and help him. So you would be like in that knight form where you're like very protected, you're very strong. Let's see. Also with Phorcus, his abilities are chiromancy, which is palm reading. So you can do like some hand magic. And pyromancy. So that's kind of like controlling fire. He teaches philosophy, art, astrology, rhetoric, and logic. He rides a pale horse and carries a sharp weapon in his hand. You can sit here, Kat. Kat, the guest, is here. I'll kind of turn it so Kat's not on camera. Oh well, we saw Kat a little bit. Alright, so Saturn is usually represented by the Grim Reaper because it's a planet of death. When you use Saturn, let's see, for the times and hours, the days and hours of Saturn, thou canst perform experiments to summon the souls from Hades. So you can like contact spirits from the dead, bring them forth and have them do things for you, or you can like talk to them, or like So I guess you could kind of say necromancy in a way, but you can also use it to like maybe bring out warriors. So you can start using some warriors to protect you. I think with the legions things, the more that I work with it, there's a lot of stories also where Solomon's riding his magic carpet, and to his right he has like a whole army, and to his left he has like a bunch of attendant spirits, and you can kind of see that as like that. You bring that into your magic, and you kind of visualize it, and you experiment with it. So maybe if you're like, in knight form, that's like you're ready to fight, you're ready to defend yourself. Maybe Saturdays are really good days for protection because like a lot of bad things can happen on a Saturday. And that's maybe like Saturdays you go out and you like look your best, you feel your best, you're doing your best. I don't know. I was born on a Saturday, so that makes me somebody that's very protective in a way where I can go here, I can go there, I could do all these things, and I can take all these shapes, but I know how to like use it properly or do it where I can be safe, I guess. I don't know. Or use it for a weapon. So I'm a destructive person. So maybe like I self-sabotage a lot of things or relationships. And that's kind of what you can see. So with Capricorn, it's a planet that's associated with Saturn because it's such a dark planet. And it's about the story from Zeus defeating his father, which is Kronos or Saturn. I think if you go further, which would be like Cronus, Saturn or Cronus, whatever, they're the same thing. So Saturn represents time. So you can just see that as like maybe your armor or your form, and you want to take a certain element. Let's see, it's 4:47. Let's go. What time? So it's Saturday and at 4 o'clock. Let's see what the chart says about that kind of time. Yeah. So Saturday, 4 o'clock. It is in the hour of the sun, and at 5 o'clock it's the hour of Venus. So it's 4:48. So right now we're in Venus, or no, we're in the sun going into Venus. So right now this is like a great time for like experiments or getting something done that you want the right way and getting results from it. But also I think we need to talk about the sun. So the sun is a form of God. It's the face of God. So when you go to the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve were hiding, they were hiding because they didn't want God to see them. So they covered up, they hid behind the trees. God is the sun. So he's like looking at you. So when you're working with the sun and you want things to come out right, it's kind of like when you pray before you do something. Gold is a color of the sun, and it's a planet. It's associated with Leo, and it's a fire element. And Leo is seen as a king of animals. Usually they'll show God in like a lion form, like Narnia. So he'll be like Jesus, whatever. And we're gonna go into Venus. So maybe right now would be like a good time for love, magic, or like getting things that you want. And you don't have to say like, oh, I want this person to fall in love with me and be like my slave. You can think of it as like, oh, I want this person to love me in a good way where they can send me good blessings and think good thoughts about me and not make my time so difficult. So it doesn't have to be like so literal. But also if we think of the night, I don't know, there's a lot of depictions of like a knight with that fiery head, so that's kind of that the sun is his head and it changes shapes and sizes or different faces. And also like people would call the 72 names of God, so that would be the demons or the spirits and even the angels. Demons are angels. There's no separation between them. They're the same thing. They're not going to be different. Just like God and the devil are going to be the same thing. It's just one way is to say like demon, like, oh, I want something strong and powerful that doesn't care about hurting others. And then angel would be like, oh, I want something that's like healing or calm or protective and like reassuring. But it can go between both of those sides. So if we're in the hour of the sun and Venus, let's say that would be actually work. Okay, so if you're in Saturn mode, like today's Saturn, you can tap into that solar energy and really amplify it. So it's basically like a substitute for a spell almost. So you can like work. So on a day like Sunday, and you wanted the sun's energy, you could be the sun for Saturn. So Saturn has that duality. And in Pokemon, it's wheezing or coughing. So sometimes I try to think like, what? Does that make any sense? But kind of. because coughing and wheezing have that like grayish purple color, and they're very deadly. And he has a skull on his stomach, and you see him changing his heads, and he's growing new heads, and that just like it's the theme. The hoary part means that like they're wise and old, so they're growing like a long beard, and they're like just white, scraggly, old hair. So that's why they kind of show him like this old man with a long beard, and he's riding a horse, a pale colored horse, which is obviously death. So if you were doing tarot readings, this would probably be him. And he's a knight. He forms a cruel old man. He teaches you astrology, philosophy, arts, rhetoric. Rhetoric is kind of like conversations or debates. So he could teach you how to talk and like how to be duality and like. So maybe that makes sense with all the planets around him. And he's just like, oh, this is how this is going to be done. This is how I want things to be done. He can go into the sun and be like, hey, this is how I want my treasure to look like. And then he could go into like Jupiter and be like, hey, you got to look for this kind of treasure. And then maybe go into the moon and be like, all right, you got to start opening doors for these guys. So it's kind of like you're running your own army. So that's kind of where that legion ability comes in. So you could see like he has 20 legions of spirits. I don't know. I think you have to think big numbers, and that's kind of difficult because it's like, how did people think about that back then when they would go to war and they'd be like, all right, I'm going to send 1 legion or 10 legions or a couple legions, or how many legions do I have of soldiers and military to be able to conquer something? We could probably do some more research on that later. If you look at the symbol for Forcus, it kind of looks like wheezing and coughing. It has like this head, and it kind of has like this small body, and when you look at wheezing, you just see the head. You don't really see any body. And he's just floating, throwing out noxious fumes. Any questions? No? Nothing? Okay. Alright, so let's see. If we're working with the king, we'll work with the next one next to him, which is Balan. First, let me check something out. So Vignay, the one before him, number 45, what I like to do is put the kings, because what you do is if you work with the kings, you have them all lined up and you ask them to do something specifically that works with each of their like armies. So they have followers. So you can see the kings right here from 1 to 68. So you have Baal over here, and I think Belial over here. Vignay is number 45, so he would be right here. He's a king and an earl. So that means not only is he a king, but he's also a warrior. And he would be around the time of, let's see, kind of in the evening, like around right now, like 4 o'clock-ish. And that kind of makes sense because right now we're in the hour of the sun, so that's a king energy. So once you start working with the spirits, you'll start noticing that there's a pattern that they follow. So when they created the book, or the Ars Goetia, you don't think of it just as like Aleister Crowley and Mathers that created it. You think of like the Egyptian priests. You think of the Jews that used to live a long time ago, or like all the way back to Moses and even Adam and Eve. Like just go all the way really far back and imagine what it was like for them to be able to understand God, understand time, and give it a name. And because they would notice things. Like when you do things for the first time, you notice stuff. You're like, oh, I'm noticing that when I'm sewing that the thread goes up and down, that I can use different colors, that I can do different kinds of stitches to get different effects, and you start learning. So back then they were learning all this stuff. Now to us it's normal because we have days of the week like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but back then they had to figure it out little by little, and they would always get like certain results. So yeah, Vignay, he's a king, he's an earl. He would be under the domain of the moon and Cancer, so he would be in that direction, which is west, like southwest. And then his zodiac sign would be Jupiter and Sagittarius. And so that kind of gives you an idea. So with the kings, they represent times of the day that are like really dominant, powerful energies. So since he's a king and an earl, you'll be like, why is he specifically a king and an earl? Why is he the sun and Mars together? So So that's kind of like, what, 4 o'clock? The sun is still out. It's pretty strong. But you can see that Sagittarius has Jupiter energy. And then the sun has... the Leo has sun energy, which is fire. So you're getting a lot of... And then Jupiter is supposed to be water. But we'll kind of get into it, I guess. And in Pokemon, he would be Execute and Executor, the coconut palm tree Pokemon. I actually have some pictures of him so we can look at him and notice some similarities. What is he, number 45 or 46? Yeah, 45. So here we go. You can see that this kind of looks like this. He has his body right here. You can see that on his body right there. You can see that is his shape. You can see 3 heads. So like 2 eyes, 2 eyes, 2 eyes. And then you see like this crown. Could be like the palm tree leaves. And I just put a little crown on his head. But, you know, that just gives you an idea what he looks like. So you can see a lot of similarities, like how they transferred it. And then you can see the eggs, and that's kind of has that shape. So... yeah. So if you're looking at Executor, let's just read his description, okay? Vignette or Vinia. So he's kind of a grass type. Kind of makes sense. You know, grass absorbs the sun. He is a great king and an earl, and he's a palm tree. So like palm trees kind of have this crown effect, you know? And an earl, and appeareth in the form of a lion, riding upon a black horse and bearing a viper in his hand. Or with the head of a lion. And bearing a viper in his hand. So you're just seeing this guy with, he's like a lion riding a horse, and he has a viper in his hand. You can even see that kind of as like a, kind of like a manticore or chimera effect, where maybe it's like a lion centaur with snake hands. So maybe like Typhoon or something, you know? His office is to discover things hidden, witches, wizards, and things present, past, and to come. So he's really good at finding witches and wizards. If you're playing Harry Potter, like, and you wanted to find other witches and destroy them, this would be a great way. Or maybe you want to make friends and create a coven. He'd probably be really good for that. In Pokemon, if you notice, when he first appears, he comes out in an episode where there's a magician. That's a wizard, that's a spellcaster, that's a witch, you know? And they meet him. He's like a hypnotist. He teaches you things present, past, and to come. So maybe that's that 3-head thing, you know, past, present, and future. He, at the command of the exorcist, will build towers, overthrow great stone walls, and make the waters rough with storms. So he has this really powerful ability to control the waters and the storms. He can destroy stone walls and build towers. So if you ever wanted to work with him to build a tower, he can do it. You can do that in a couple ways. Like maybe if you look at the tarot card tower, it's like something that gets built up and he destroys it. So maybe you can build somebody up, make them feel really great, and then destroy them and watch them just crash. Boom. Make it like more satisfying. When you do something like that, you get a lot more energy. Today I was hearing about Pokemon and how they were playing the card game. You use energy to increase your Pokemon's power. There's a video game called Shin Megami Tensei where they get this thing called Magatsuhi, and that's energy too, and they build up that energy, they gather more and more, and they can make like things happen. They can become stronger, they can make wishes come true, they can it's just an enhancer. So in Illuminati rituals, they do sacrifices, they do different kinds of humiliation rituals, just rituals in general. Even their music, and they're gathering all this energy just to build up for something really great. Overthrow great stone walls. I mean, you could even build a tower of your own self and not have it break, you know? Overthrow great stone walls. So maybe there's something that you can't accomplish in life and there's like a blockage. Like let's say your mom and your dad won't let you do something or become somebody. Vignette can help you overcome that. He can destroy like those boundaries that prevent you. Or maybe somebody's like trying to protect themselves from something. Even like if you're doing like an astral projection battle, like spiritual warfare, and somebody's throwing up like really good defenses and you can't break them, you ask Vignette and he'll help you break down those walls. Also like the walls of Jericho. So you can take the Bible and stories from the Bible, put them into this, because that's what this is. The Bible and all those stories, yeah, they're true, but also they came from this. This is what invented those stories. This is what empowered them. So this is the moment when God is like, hey, circle the castle and it'll destroy it with your music, you know? And they did it, they listened. So, yes, they were working with the demon. Yes, they were working with an angel. Yes, they were working with God. Yes, he's still the devil. Like, that's what you have to take into consideration is like, they're summoning that power that's like a duality, like a very powerful force of nature. So when you're working with these spirits, you can see that they're not weak, that they're not going to fail you, that they're going to come true. And you need that too sometimes. Like, when you're doing a spell, you're supposed to let it go. You're supposed to like, all right, I want this, and then let it go. Just like let it do its thing. You can empower it, you can make it stronger, you can focus on it and go towards it, but also there's moments where you're like, all right, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to like even imagine what it is, and that's when you let God kind of take over and do his thing. So at the same time, you're still a Christian, you're still Jewish in a way, because that's where Christianity comes from, Judaism. You're still Greek, you're still a wizard, you're still all these like religions, and you're like kind of stretching it, you're making it malleable. And he makes waters rough with storms. So maybe, let's say, water is usually emotions, or they could be like a whole bunch of people. So maybe in the collective conscious, you could see a lot of people there, and you're like, you know what, I want to mess some stuff up. I want to make them have a bit more trouble, so you can make them start going through like turmoil, and just mess up their day or something. But you don't have to really do much, but you can also take on that form. So in Ifa, it's like a spirituality where you are mounted by spirits. You work with orishas, but it kind of teaches you how to channel those energies. Like, you can channel love, you can channel war, you could channel the magic. So you're just letting the magic flow through you or from you, and you just learn how to manipulate it in different ways. Kind of like when you watch Hunter x Hunter, they use Nen, and that's your spiritual energy, and you kind of like move it where you want. Like, do you want to be a manipulator? Do you want to be a conjurer? Do you want to be a evoker? Like, where do you want to take your powers? And you can do all of them. You can do some of them. Maybe you're better at some than the others. But it's basically like how they teach you how to do ceremonies and rituals. So maybe if you were an Egyptian a long time ago, and you were a high priest, this is something they would teach you, to be like, all right, this is that time of day. You notice that this is in your life a lot, and you can kind of manipulate those energies so you can like do something with it. Because a lot of people will just sit there and let things happen, or people will just sit there and like get frustrated, or maybe something bad will happen and you just like let it completely take over your life and you don't know what to do. And then that's why they say pray to God and he can handle it. But there's going to be moments too where God wants you to learn and to pick up your own magic and do something with it. Like, he puts in your heart to become a magician for a reason. Some people do it because they want to be strong or weak or whatever, and like, you know, spread love or hate, it doesn't matter. The point is, he gives you that kind of calling where you're like, all right, I want to learn magic a certain way. And when you're an Egyptian or something, like a high priest, and you're going through all these like initiations, you're learning about different abilities that are out there. Alright, so yeah, Vignier's is a perfect king for this time. So you could think of him as Apollo and Ares, the god of war. So you think like the god of the sun and the god of war. So that kind of makes sense, because with the walls of Jericho, they used an instrument and music to break down the walls. So you're kind of seeing Apollo and Ares working together to destroy this wall and conquer a city. That's what this key is for, is so you can interpret the Bible, because these are all from the Bible, and the Bible's made from them. The Torah's made from this. Like, people don't like to admit it, but it's true. They'll say like, no, Catholicism and Christianity are different. No, they're the same thing. Then there's Ashkenazi and Sephardism, and then they're the same thing. Ashkenazi and Catholic would be the same thing because they're very ritualistic, and then Sephardic and Christianity are very similar because they're very joyous and they include everybody and everybody gets a chance to do something. Up here you have high priests and everybody has to follow strict rules, you know? And this gives you that opportunity to see like what is inside all of these religions, what is inside this process. These are things that even like the Pope or like high priests, or they try to figure this kind of stuff out. But with this book and your own ingenuity, you can kind of dissect it and put it back together and use it to your own will, to your own accord, and understand how things work on your own without somebody telling you like this is how it is and that's all it is gonna be and you have to follow the rules or else. So that's the cool part about this book, I think. So sometimes I think like there's no way that the Ars Goetia can help you. There's no way that like spirits or demons can help you. Like, what's the point? It's not gonna make a difference. It's not gonna make things better or worse. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, there's no substance. But it's great for education. It's great for understanding. It's great for knowledge. It's not gonna help you in the long run. Like, how is gonna? You're not gonna play a song and then it's gonna break down walls. But maybe it is. Who knows? I think the point is to like it makes you imagine things. For me, I consider the Ars Goetia like a role playing game almost, where it's like Dungeons and Dragons, but the first one, like when people used to be like, all right, I'm a Minotaur or I'm a Sphinx, or they would just tell stories and like what could it relate to the person, what could it relate to the tribe, what could it relate to the other people, what could it relate to you. Like, I'm sure they thought some crazy stuff back then and we don't even know, because how many people know what you're thinking? Not a lot of people know what you're thinking, and like the only way they're going to know is if it's on movies or TV, or like if you make videos or art about it, and they're still not going to get the full context of who you are. So I think this is just a great way to understand astrology. It's a great way to understand the zodiac. It's a great way to understand religion, time, why things are the way they are, why colors are revered so much. So like if you have more gold, you have more god power. That's it. Point blank. Like when you play a video game and you go in god mode, you win. You don't lose. So like also when you play Super Mario Brothers and you get that star, it's basically gold, but you get a star and you become invincible. Like you're not gonna be beaten. In the book it says invisible. Invisible means undestroyable. It means invincible as well. There's no difference between it. It's the same word. Kind of like how God is invisible. He's invincible. You can't destroy him. He's always going to be there. The sun's always going to be there. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. You can't touch it. You can't destroy it. So when you're channeling the sun's energy, you can become that. You can become invincible. So if you're like in the astral realm and battling, you could be invincible. You just got to channel that energy. Maybe that's kind of where Hercules kind of comes in, because Hercules is Leo. And he is a demigod, but you can think of him like the form on Earth as well. There's like a lot of ways you can put down these thought processes and turn them into something. So that's why you see people wear like lion necklaces and like lion clothes and a lot of gold, because they want to be invincible. They want to be strong. They want to be protected. You'll always see people with lions and they'll be like, I love God so much. So those are just things that you can learn from. Let's see, we're gonna kind of go over this real quick. So if Vignay owns all these kings, if Vignay's a king and he owns, he owns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other soldiers, and you go to Vignay and you're like, hey Vignay, I need a lot of help, and he's like, well, I can help you with war, I can help you with love, I can help you with communication, love. So you got Bifrons, he's an earl, Yuval, he's a duke, Hagenti, he's a president, and Crochel, he's another duke. And a lot of these abilities, they might not make sense, but once you start like incorporating them into your magic, like what I like to do is every day I spend time with one demon. So today I'm spending time with Furcus. I drew his sigil on this little placard. I'll show you next time. It's like a little blackboard and I just draw it with chalk and I have paint and color on it so I can see what elements it's in. And I'll show you that. And it's really cool. It's actually looks just like the compass, and it has that triangle with the circle shape, so it gives you an idea of how you can incorporate those rituals and make your own kind of magic as well. And so I'll spend time with each one. But maybe next time, tomorrow Sunday, if I work with Vignay, I draw his sigil, and I can ask him things about Bifrons and be like, well, he's your Earl, right? Well, bring him to me and let me interrogate him and ask him questions and try to understand him. And those spirits are going to listen even more because they're going to listen to their king. They're going to be like, oh, dang, Vignette, my boss is calling. Like, I got to go. I'll be back. He has something that he wants me to do. You can kind of think of them as like, all right, so you're like working with Apollo, and maybe he has this Aries energy to him, and you could think of him like as a fiery sun, and I guess that's kind of what a lion is, right? They're like have this fiery mane, and they're lions. They're powerful. And he has a horse, and he has a viper. Also, if we look at the zodiac sign that's associated with Vignette, he has Sagittarius and Jupiter. That's the horse. That's that black horse right there. So it gives you an idea that like that this form of Apollo, he has this Sagittarius energy, which is healing and conquering abilities. Centaurs know how to heal. They know how to fight in wars. They're very powerful creatures. They're really intelligent as well. And that's also another story with like Hercules. He works with those energies, and he's bearing a viper in his hand. Like, maybe you could think of that as like Hercules fighting the Hydra, and that's the viper, like he's controlling it. Or maybe a staff, or like a wand, or a wizard wand, or like Moses holding his rod. You can think of it different ways. Also with Moses, I like to think of him as a form of Mars, because it's like Moses, Mars, I don't know, Aries. I think there's just a lot of symbology that you can connect between the two, like between Greek and Christianity or ancient Judaism. And if I ever say anything that you guys are like, well, that's not fact, that's not fiction, whatever, blah, 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 I don't really care. The point is you're learning how to take this story and this story, and you can debate it. So you can be like, well, that's not true. And then later on, it's like, I guess it was true, So it's kind of like you have to learn how to take your wins and your losses, but also try to think outside the box and don't be so narrow-minded, and be open to suggestions, be open to ideas, be open to new beliefs, be open to like understanding new ways of thinking, because they make the book more interesting. This is a very interesting book. It has a lot of information. It's kind of like reading the Bible, but fast forwarding it. So you're not like reading this whole passage. It's good to read the Bible and get an idea, but eventually, like for me, the Bible gets super boring because it's like I've read it a million times. Like, what? I don't really get it. Not that I don't get it, but I don't like, what can I do with it? But with the Ars Goetia, you can be like, all right, I know I can use Moses' energy for this. I know I can use Abraham's energy for this. I know I could just bounce around and start connecting the dots. Why names are named the way they are. Why they wore this color. Why they had a golden statue. Why did they have a staff. Why did they use water. This kind of helps you understand it. Also, I guess you can kind of think it too, because Moses was walking through, that Red Sea. That's kind of controlling the waters and making a storm, because he had all that water come crashing down on them, you know what I'm saying? So maybe he didn't walk through I believe he did walk through it, but like, let's say he was over the water and he somehow got all the Jews to go cross the water with him, like on a boat or something, And then while they were being chased, a storm came in and crashed everything else, and they survived and they escaped, You can think of it kind of like that. Like, just, it doesn't always have to be the right story. These are designed for like you to interpret it in your own words and make new ideas. Kind of like when you see a celebrity, they're using this book. When you see directors and filmmakers, they're using this book. When they want to make something legit and make money off of it, they use this book. Whether they like it or not, these spirits are going to force them to do it. So they could do a movie that's like, has nothing to do with demonology. Nobody can know about it. And the spirits will do their own thing, and you'll be able to interpret it. It's like a secret hidden code that's easily decipherable. You just have to understand it, read it, and get to knowing it. I think the other day I watched Demon 79, and I never seen the episode, but I knew everything that was going to happen. So it's a Black Mirror episode. It's called Demon 79, and from the 7, you get Valifor, and Valifor is a duke, and he tempts you to steal and leads you to the gallows. So that lets you know somebody's gonna steal something and somebody's gonna go to hell or they're gonna die. And that's exactly what happens in the episode. I don't care, spoiler alert. So the girl steals a little domino piece, and at the end of the day, it leads her to her own destruction. She ends up in hell with Gap. And people were like, well, it's kind of like a cute romantic love story, but if you think about it, that demon got her. He made her believe a lot of things. She killed people, she hurt people, and she didn't get away with this. She lost at the end, and she dies. So that's Valifor right there. And then you have number 9, which is Paimon, and he's a king, so he can bind people. He can bind you. He's very intelligent. So if you notice in the episode, there's a lot of parts where people get bound by the girl. So like there's one part where this guy's walking his dog, and then he's like, can I help you, or like, do you need help? And she's like, she has a brick in her hand, and the demon tells her kill him, and she kills him, but he doesn't really run away. He's bound to her. He lets her hit him basically. And then there's another part where she meets another guy, and he just sits down and he's like, go ahead, you can kill me, I knew it was going to happen eventually. And she just bashes his head in with a hammer. That kind of that's another binding. Like, she didn't have to do nothing. Like, he just was bound. The demon bound the guy for her, and she got him. But yeah, and then Gap, he's number 33. So where does 33 come from? 79? I don't know, but I think that was very interesting that they picked Gap. He's a prince, and he can transport you from one place to another. He can bring you familiars from other people. They didn't really do anything in there that kind of had that idea, but Jupiter is seen as a planet of love because water represents love. When you do tarot readings, you're using a chalice that represents love and wealth and materialism. So it's kind of a combination of earth and water. And Venus is air, and it represents love, but this is a form of material love almost, like something that you can hold, you can see, you can value it. And you can't really hold the air. You can't keep a plant alive forever. You can't keep someone young forever. Eventually things age and die, but with the chalice, it's going to be there for a while, but somebody can steal it, somebody can break it. There's like, it gives you an idea of how things can move between different realms. Yeah, so let's say we're like, Vignette, help me out with Bifrons. Bifrons comes out. Okay, so Vignette is Executor. You're like, hey, what's up, Executor? Can you bring out Bifrons? Bifrons is Marowak. And you're like, hey, Marowak, I heard you're an Earl, you're a monster, you're an Aries sign, you're represented by Mars. I'm the Exorcist. You put on the shape of a man, so he'll turn into a man for you if you want. Even in the episode of Demon 79, you see Gap appear before the girl, and he's like this like a ram-headed demon, but then he turns into a human. That's something that a lot of the demons have a gift for, is to take a shape of something that you want. Like, they could take the form of a man for you. So you could understand them better, or have like a spiritual companion, or even like literally they'll come in the form of a person and talk to you. And maybe they're just talking through a person, and that's a lot of times when you're a Christian and you meet somebody, you're like, yeah, God was talking to you he was talking through you. Like, God was speaking through you and giving me a message. That's kind of what this is. So you're taking like that Christianity side of you, and you're kind of going into the Satanist idea, because Satanism is kind of like taboo. It's like scary. It's like not a lot of people can handle this kind of energy. Not a lot of people can understand it. Not a lot of people are even interested. Like, when I was selling my art, nobody was interested in it, because all I do is paint Pokemon and video game characters, and all those people, they didn't care. They don't like video games. They don't like Pokemon. They would just walk right by. The colors were beautiful, but they did not care. They were just like, whatever. They didn't even look at the art. Nobody did. I was like, dang, nobody's looking at my art. Like, that's kind of weird. Because usually I get lots of compliments, but nobody could even see it. But that's because they were older, maybe, and they were just not those demographics that like what I like. And I'm like, that's kind of cool, though, because it's giving me an idea what kind of people are coming to the beach. And I think the more I go there and the more I do my art, I think I could do a lot of magic that allows me to bring in the people that I want, get people in that are interested in the same things I'm interested in, and we can start working together. So maybe this is a good start because it's giving me an idea like, hey, you're not really wanted in this area. You're not really what they're looking for, and you're not really attracting the right energy. Let's start working on some magic that can bring you the right clientele, the right energy. And I remember somebody did look at my art, but she was like a homeless person kind of, and she looked at one piece of the art, which is the compass, and she's like, well, I'm a Gemini, but I'm on the cusp of Cancer. Why is Gemini so far away from Cancer on your compass? And I'm like, well, Gemini's an air sign, it's in the east. Cancer's a water sign, it's in the west. But they're right next to each other on the outside ring. So on this ring, this is the zodiac ring. This ring would be more of the planets and the symbols. But it's very useful to have it that way because you want to look at the basics and then you want to look at the outside. So I just had the basics on that one map. And she's like, okay, but it's when you have the basics, you can understand this. With the astrology part, that's more out there, more advanced. That's like after a long time of people experiencing things, you could think of it as like a second generation kind of knowledge. So I guess when I was growing up, we had telephones, and now we have cell phones. You could kind of think of it like that. Like now it doesn't need to be plugged in. Now you can just use it whenever you want. So when people are like learning about their zodiac signs, they could just look at the new astrology chart and understand it better. But back then, maybe you had to use the old way, or the old way is just basically really good for magical workings. Because you can do magic with the new zodiac, but with the old one, you can get a lot more out of it in your own way. You can combine them, actually, and use a little bit of this, use a little bit of that, and it just makes sense. So yeah, B. Franz is an Earl. He does astrology, geometry, arts and sciences, precious stones and woods. He changes dead bodies and puts them in another place. He lights candles on the graves of the dead. Marowak. Cubone. It's a Pokemon that's representative of death. And he is a warrior. Cubone's always walking around with the club. Marowak has a damn boomerang, a bone boomerang, running around whacking people. Like, that's something a warrior would do. And he does look like a monster. That's like a little monster. And he puts on the shape of a man. He stands on 2 feet. That's what that means. On the shape of a man. It means that he's standing on his own 2 feet. And that's important because that's intelligence. His office is to make one knowing in astrology. So that could be like some nighttime stuff. Like learning about the sky. But when I take astrology, I don't take it like, oh, that's that star, this is what this means, and we're going around in a circle. It could teach you that, because there's a lot of times where I interpret the stars, and they'll be pretty accurate. But with the astrology part, I usually take it into the mansions, which would be like Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn. How do they work? So if he's an Earl, which is Mars, he can teach you a lot about Mars. He can teach you a lot about Jupiter, whatever, it doesn't matter. Geometry, he's going to teach you about math. Other arts and sciences. So you can kind of think of like maybe you want to use him to make like some zombies that fight for you in the spiritual realm. And maybe you want to create your own. That's like some high level magic, but if you have the ability, maybe you can do it. Like I love to do that. I love to just like, I'll imagine that I'm like bringing out the dirt from the ground just with my mind, like some telekinesis shit, like shaping it into a man, and then giving it some life from Hades, like some really angry, powerful force, and then you let it go and you tell him like, hey, go destroy the earth for me, and he'll like say, okay, whatever you want, master, and he'll go do it. But maybe when you do it, he comes out looking like Frankenstein, and he's like, no, I want to wreck everything you love, and he just starts breaking everything. But that's just, I'm sorry, that could happen to you, but I don't know what kind of magician you are. I know what kind of magician I am. I'm really good at it, so I can be like, alright, I'll make a whole army of mummies and have them attack people. That's kind of, you can take things too, like from the movie The Mummy, you see him bringing back the dead and they're all attacking like warriors. That's something you can learn. But that they got that idea from this. This is what created those things. They'll be like, oh, well, it came from my mind. Probably not. You read it from somewhere, you got the idea from somewhere, and then you used your mind to say, yeah, I want to try something like that. That's how it works, okay? He gives you precious stones and woods. He's a earth type, ground type, so that's kind of where the stones come in, I guess. He changes dead bodies and puts them in another place. He lights candles upon the graves of the dead. He can make like will-o-wisps. If you notice Marowak in the Alola version, he has a bone with 2 little fireballs at the end. What? Wow, I never knew that. That makes so much sense. Okay, now I'm starting to connect things. And he does live in a bone tower. The Lavender Town has a huge like cemetery, grave tower thingy. I forgot what it's called. Yeah. That's a cemetery. That's a grave. That's what he does. He's moving the spirits around. That's awesome. Maybe you can use that for like, hey, I want you to gather a whole bunch of spirits for me and bring them to me, and I want to like put their energy into something and create an army. I always think armies. But if you ever watched Power Rangers, Rita Repulsa summons golems. That's cool, huh? A leaf just fell from there. I don't know. Little things like that are pretty cool. But Rita Repulsa summons these golems and she gives them life and they move around. If you've ever seen Demon Knights, it's a Tales from the Crypt movie where he cuts open his head. He summons some demons from the ground. He's like bringing them from hell. That's Hades. And he's giving them a purpose. Like, hey, go attack these people and give me back that key. And they're going in there. They're wrecking havoc. And they're like scaring the crap out of you. And they have like these evil green eyes. It's so beautiful. I love it. I love that movie. I used to watch it all the time when I was little. And I'm so thankful because it led me here. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so Yuval or Volval is the next spirit. And he is a duke. And he's mighty and strong, appears in the form of a mighty dromedary at the first. Alright, in Pokemon, he would be Hitmonlee. If you look at Hitmonlee, he has like this round head. I've already drawn him. Let's see what he looks like. Alright, here he is. You have him right here. He kind of looks like an alien. But he has like these camel-y colors. He's also has like these Egyptian eyes, like alien Egyptian eyes. But after a while, at the command of the exorcist, he puts on human shape. And speaks the Egyptian tongue, but not perfectly. So what that means is when you look at hieroglyphs, it's an interpretive language. It doesn't have a definitive, like, this is what this is. It's like something you can interpret. I'm sure it has something where it's like, all right, this means this means that, but you can kind of read into it and be like, all right, the pharaoh woke up one day and he started noticing that his land wasn't growing as well as it should be, that his kings before him had like really good land, that there's like some kind of famine going on, or maybe there's a blessing and there's a whole bunch of food. That's kind of what the spirits teach you, is how to interpret things, but from fragments. So like, let's say the world was made of a matrix. This is the matrix. This is the code to the matrix. This is how it works. So if you start noticing symbols, or if you notice numbers, you can kind of pick a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and be like, oh, okay, I get where it's going, like what spirits are influencing it, where they're trying to go with it. Like when you watch a movie, you're like, hey, I know what this movie means because I'm noticing that there's this sequence of numbers, there's these colors they keep using, there's this character and the stories match, and you can kind of see where they're getting their inspirations from. So you're almost like a scientist or a dissector of knowledge. He speaks the Egyptian tongue, but not perfectly. He can nowadays converse in the sound through a colloquial Coptic. We'll figure out what that means later, but it sounds like he can talk to you in different ways, like, hey, da-da-da-da-da, I don't know. That one's really difficult. If you ever do demonology and the spirits talk to you like that, it's pretty crazy, because you'll be like, well, should I do this? Should I do that? And then you'll get like a lot of signs, and like they'll start moving things around or start like making noises. It's crazy. And eventually you kind of like, I don't want to say lose it, but it can make you a little crazy. So you got to learn how to just be like, all right, tone down and figure it out on your own. His office is to procure the love of women and to tell things past, present, and to come. He also procureth friendship between friends and foes. Alright, so we're like, alright, Vignette, Executor, I need some help. And he's like, alright, I got Marowak. He said he's going to go beat up some people for you. And then I have Yuval over here. What's his name? What's this Pokemon? Oh, Hitmonlee. And he's going to go make you some friends because he's really good at causing friendship between friends and foes. Like, you have a lot of enemies and I need them to work with you to get things done. You guys can't always be warring at each other. Like, I'll have this Marowak go and hit him with the club a couple times. And I'll have Hitmonlee over here telling him, hey, you got to work with him. You know what I'm saying? So you're not losing at the end of the day. Like, hey, like, you meet one person, you're like, hey, you're going to get hurt if you keep doing that. And they get hurt, and you're like, I told you, but they still have to come back and work with you. Hagenti. The 48th spirit is Hagenti. He is a president appearing in the form of a mighty bull with griffin's wings. This is at first, but after the command of the exorcist, he puts on human shape. Hagenti is Hitmonchan. So I didn't draw him yet. But Hitmonchan, he kind of does look like a bull, and he does look like he has wings. He has like these shoulder pads that have this wing effect. His spiky hair kind of has like this bull shape to it. But he puts on human shape. His office is to make men wise and instruct them in diverse things, also to transmute all metals into gold, and to change wine into water and water into wine. So wine is... Okay, so he's a president, so that means he can go anywhere. So if you notice, Hitmonchan has this like quick movement. So he has like this look that he can go between realms and do a lot of things. He's very physical. Mercury is a physical planet. Even though it's spiritual, it's a physical planet because it represents thievery, and that's what thieves do. They're physical. You have to physically steal something, or you can do it spiritually. But if you did it physically, you can steal it. Like, he's kind of that thing. He can make you wise and instruct you in diverse things. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, you're like, alright, how is Hitmonchan going to help make you wise? I don't know. But if you think about it, he has a fire punch, an ice punch, a thunder punch. That's pretty wise. You know, something that can go between different, elements. And instruct them in diverse things. That's pretty diverse. Also to transmute all metals into gold. So gold is, like I said, a king color. So if you're turning, like, let's say you turn copper into gold, if you turn iron into gold. So what I'm thinking is, like, maybe you can turn those planets to do something for you. So it gives you an idea what a president does. He works with different planets to get things done, to make it into something that could come back to the king. So maybe you can think of it as like, alright, Hitmonchan, go over down the street and take that person's Jupiter energy and give it to me. So Jupiter energy will be wealth. So he'll like beat them up, take their wealth power, and bring it back to you, or bring it back to Vignette, Executor. Executor will use it and make you rich. He could turn wine into water and water into wine. Wine is represented, I think, by Jupiter because it's... I don't know. I think it's also... let's just put it more towards Mercury, because Mercury is a purple color. Wine has a purple reddish color to it. The grapes are purple. And it's kind of seen as Dionysus or a satyr, because Capricorn is a satyr. A person with goat horns. It represents like debauchery. So if you look at Dionysus, he's heavily associated with Jesus. And they have a lot in common, because Jupiter is a very special planet because it's so close to the moon and it's so close to Mercury. It's in between that direction, so it would be northwest. So if you look at it, Jupiter is connected to Mercury and the water, so Earth and water. So you can see Jupiter right here. It has the Virgo and the Pisces like really close to it, connected to it. And then you have Capricorn right here. so the satyr, so that Dionysus energy. So you could see this Dionysus effect. And then if you know how they say wines or spirits or liquors that they can like control things or possess you, which they do. Change water into wine and wine into water. Let's say you wanna use fire instead of earth in a spell, and he can do that for you. He can turn that water into like fire. But in the astral realm, maybe he could do it in the physical realm. You'd probably have to do something specific to get it to work. But let's say, all right, I have this water and I want it to be fire. So I can like bless it, like kind of like holy water, and be like, all right, I want you to be fire and I want you to burn maybe the spiritual realm. And you can kind of take that fire and just throw it out there and let it do its thing. And maybe the fire will just drip around everywhere and start burning everything. Just think kind of outside the box, because that's what the spirits kind of help you do. All right, it's been an hour. We'll go over the last one and then I'll call it a day. So we have Crochel next, which is Licky Tongue. You're like, Licky Tongue is a demon? Yeah, he's this one. If you notice, he has a tongue. It's like, and that's what Licky Tongue is, basically a tongue Pokemon. Crochel, he's a duke, so that means he's all about love, air, and you're like, well, Licky Tongue isn't really an air-type Pokemon. Where does the love come in? I mean, he's pink, that's kind of a lovely color, but sometimes you just have to take it like, they were developing these Pokemon, they're not going to get it like 100% where they make it just like the demon, because you don't want that. Well, maybe they did, but you don't want it to be so obvious that people figure it out right away, because obviously, people don't even know this about Pokemon, and if they did, they would be so mad. Like, Christians would flip out. They would be like, I told you Pokemon were evil. But at this point, it doesn't really matter, because Pokemon's so popular that they would have to do this whole thing again. I hope I don't get defamation for it. I don't think I will, but I mean, it's just, I'm stating facts, I guess. I don't know if that's bad or good. He appears in the form of an angel. He is great and strong, speaking mystically of hidden things. He teaches art, geometry, and liberal sciences. He, at the command of the exorcist, will produce great noises like rushings of many waters. Although there be none, he warms waters and discovers baths. He was of the order of potestates or powers before his fall, as he declared unto King Solomon. You're like, how can I use this guy? Well, let's say you want to find warm waters. I don't know, a bath? Sometimes I'm like, what are the purpose? What's the purpose of the spirit? Because this sounds like ridiculous. Like, I can make my own bath. But maybe since he can discover things like that, maybe he can find out secrets for you. He speaks mystically of hidden things. So, like, that's kind of interesting that he can find stuff that's hidden. He teaches art and geometry and liberal sciences. I think I should work with him a lot more, because I would want to understand what it is that he helps you with, because there's got to be something there. And maybe because it's so difficult to understand him, that there could be something more in there. But I think with Licky Tongue, he licks and he fills things around. So that's kind of like finding things. But if you notice, this is kind of like in the shape of a cup. And cup is water. But it also has these wings on it. So it kind of gives you like some kind of idea like what it could be. He's difficult to understand, but maybe you could understand him and like be able to interpret it in a different way. But I think that's kind of the point. Like, there's some spirits that don't really make a lot of sense, but the more you work with them and kind of evolve with them and grow with them, you can kind of like shape them and mold them into what you need, and then eventually you'll learn how to use them. So yeah, you're like, all right, Licky Tongue, go find me some, like, discover some baths for me, and he'll go and look for baths for you, and then he'll bring you some information later on. And it'll be like information that's not like, here you go, boom. It'll be like, maybe you'll see it on YouTube, or you'll get a really good idea, or you'll see it on a movie, or you'll be walking and you'll be like, I never thought of that, just ideas. But he talks like produces great noises like rushing of many waters. That's kind of like what the wind sounds like when it hits trees. But I also think like Crochel can like talk through the universe in a way where like he can talk through things, like how that damn car is beeping all day. Geometry, liberal sciences. All right, so that's just an idea. You're calling Executor King Venier, and he has all these spirits under him that he can help you with, and yeah, that's just some interesting stuff. That's the end of the episode, I guess. I wish there was like more we could talk about, but we'll figure it out later. And thank you for watching. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If you don't like it, you like it, I don't care. Just put it in the comments. Put down what you think or how you work with magic or what you interpreted from the Ars Goetia or whatever you want to put in there. We could talk about it later. All right. Thank you. Bye.